Keith Cohen. I'm the owner of Orwashers, a 103-year-old New York City bakery and institution. So for today, I want to show everyone the bakery and what we've been doing here for the past 100 years and really concentrate on the bagels. Now for us, the bagels are something that we did in the past 2 to 3 years, but I think we've been able to master this product and we want to teach everyone how we do it. So come on in and I'm going to show you around. Over here, this is our little bagel making station, and we have our newest cinnamon raisin. We have the Everything is Everything, which has the everything seeds on the inside. We have our Fort Grain, which is a little tongue-in-cheek on our place of business in Fort Greene, Brooklyn. We have a sesame and the sourdough. Lately, we just started experimenting with the cinnamon raisin. So it's made in the same type of fashion, so you're getting a lot of the flavor of the cinnamon from the overnight fermentation and also the raisins. But today, we really want to concentrate on these beauties. What I like about the bagels here are we use our steam oven as opposed to a boil, and because of the longer fermentation time, it eats better. You don't get into a food coma like you do with a lot of bagels today that are just yeasted and malted and sugared. So it's going to take us a little bit of time to show everyone, but I know the end result will be worth it. So come on down, and I'm going to show you what a 103-year-old bakery looks like. They watch their head coming down. A lot of people can imagine how many people have hit their head here. So much like European bakeries, this emulates where you have a retail store, ground level, and a basement bakery. This is bigger than most European bakeries that I've been in, but still nonetheless. Back here is one of the original brick ovens. So when it first was built here, it would have been fired by coal, then by wood, and eventually just by gas. At one point there was a sister oven here, but due to time it unfortunately doesn't work anymore. So we bricked that up. But this is, you're looking here at, this is predates it, so probably a 115-year-old brick oven, which at one point I would love to be to rehabilitate. I just need the time and the money. So. If anyone out there knows how to fix these old ovens, please contact me. And the goal here for Orwashers is to celebrate our 200-year anniversary at some point. I won't be alive for it, but I really hope that I can pass it on to whatever generation or whatever new ownership so we can be a 200-year institution in New York City. So we're off to make the bagels now. Instead of the donuts, right, it's time to make the bagels. And I'm going to introduce you to Isaac, who comes here every day at 3 o'clock in the morning and makes bagels and croissants and everything else that you saw upstairs. So let's walk on over and say hello to Isaac. I want to introduce Isaac, and Isaac will help us guide us through the bagel making process.
Hi, welcome to the bakery. So for making the bagels today, we have here like flour, water, honey, malt syrup or salt, yeast, and we have 2 starters. Okay, this is going to give a little the flavor to our bagels.
We have a starter here, so this is a sourdough starter, and this is a biga. So the biga is going to have a sweeter flavor to it, and combined and with the overnight fermentation is really one of the key of why the bagels are so good. So Isaac, you know, we use honey here instead of sugar.
Yes.
And I think a lot of bakeries, they use regular refined sugar, but we believe that honey not only is better for you and tastes better, I wish I was a scientist to figure out why it reacts better, but it does.
Well, yeah, most of the bakeries use regular sugar, but we prefer honey on our bagels. So that gives a little bit, not a little bit, just a lot more better flavor to them. What we have here, all these ingredients, are for around 5 dozens of bagels. This is just a regular dough, plain dough. You can add anything else you want, any kind of seeds, everything you want to the final dough. Okay, and we're going to show you that a little bit later.
So we're going to take you over here to our 140-quart Hobart It's basically a home KitchenAid on a lot of steroids. So if you imagine the Arnold Schwarzenegger of home KitchenAids, this is what you're looking at. But what we can do is, for the home baker, you're going to reduce the quantity so you can use a regular home stand mixer without burning it out. So let's take over the ingredients here, Isaac, and let's start mixing. So you're looking at a biga. A biga is a short-term pre-ferment, 8 to 12 hours maximum. Whereas the starter over here is something that it's generational. We feed it every day, we grow it, we use it, and it is the backbone of many a great bakery. One last thing for everyone. I want to show you, this is a 17-pound batch, roughly. I mean, look at the amount of fresh yeast we used. It's infinitesimal. And that is, I think, also one of the keys of why our bagels don't put you into a food coma. You don't feel bloated afterwards. It is really adopting what we know about bread, and we moved it over to our bagel production. So we're going to start the mixing process now. It's going to take a good number of minutes, but we want to be able to show everyone what the dough should look like in the beginning and the final stages. Take charge.
We're adding flour, salt. We're adding all the ingredients together. So I already add the flour, the salt, I'm gonna add the honey. Then here we have the malt syrup.
Now, if you don't mind interjecting, this malt syrup is what's called non-diastatic. So non-diastatic is missing an enzyme that acts more of a sugar, okay? So it might be a little bit better for you. What it does is it doesn't act like a sugar as much, so the dough doesn't just blow up on you. There have been times where we've gotten the wrong malt, and unfortunately, we weren't aware of it until we mixed, and people were like, oh my God, what's happening? So Isaac right now is adding the biga. As you can see, I mean, it's ready to go. You see how active it is. You can see the strands, the gluten strands developing. And one of the things, if you were able to put your head in that bucket, is the fact that there's a nice, beautiful, sweet, aromatic smell to it. Whereas your starter that we added before has a beautiful smell as well, but it's more of a lactic acid type smell.
Right now we add our yeast.
So we add the yeast at the very end. Mostly we don't want the yeast interacting with any of the salt. One thing that salt does is it retards the dough fermentation, and if it came in contact with the yeast, it's a high probability it would kill a lot of the yeast. Some people will even tend to add the yeast at the very end or the salt after the dough develops. This so happened to work for us, and it's a way for us to do it quickly.
Okay, so now we're seeing how all our ingredients are coming together. We're gonna wait until you can see a nice. We're gonna see it all incorporated, and then we're gonna increase the speed a little bit just to develop some gluten.
One of the things we do, as opposed to a lot of bagel stores, and this is for as long as I can remember, they would use high protein flours. Okay, we use more of a patent flour. Our proteins are in the 11s, as opposed to the high protein in 14 plus. We believe that the strength of the starter and the fermentation is what gives the body to the bagel without having a chew that is way too strong.
So it's almost everything incorporated. Everything is together. That will depend, of course, on the machine that you have at home. So because we don't mix it too much, we need the longer fermentation, which is really good for you, your body.
We're not going to use this dough right now because normally this dough would rest for an hour, hour and a half, and it depends on the temperature of the room. This room has gotten very hot very quickly. So what we've done is we've mixed a little bit ahead of time to show everyone what the dough after resting should look like. So come on over and we'll open a bucket for you. So what we're going to do now that the dough has been rested, we're going to show you
how to cut it.
How to hand scale the dough, okay? And from there, we're gonna let it rest and then roll it. But for now, one of the keys is just hand chunking it. And you do want to get some accurate numbers, so everything will proof and bake relatively the same. We're somewhere around 115 grams, which is, I think, translates to, 3.5 ounces. And believe it or not, it really doesn't look like much, okay? And it really isn't that much. You know, besides the water and flour, you have some air incorporated in there. So, you know, you can see the dough is very nice, it's shiny, it's relaxed, and it should make very, very easy for the baker, either home or professional, to chunk this. You're not going to get a lot of resistance out of this dough. And little by little, we're going to chunk about a dozen or two here by hand. A little bit later through the process, we're going to show you how we mass produce them here. Still very rudimentary with a divider, a hydraulic divider. But for now, this is something anyone can accomplish at home. What we're going to do is, why don't we put these back for a little bit later? Sure. Okay. You know, you could, if you want to, use some of your leftover bagel dough as a biga for the next one. It depends on how proficient you are at baking. You'd have to understand a little bit what's in the dough and what you plan on doing, but you could safely use 10% of this for your next mix. So while we let this rest here in anticipating for rolling out, we're going to show you how we do it in a larger scale. Still very small compared to some of these commercial bagel shops, but for us, it is the only way we can do this.
So we want to use a little bit of oil, just to make sure that the dough doesn't stick. We put it inside. We try to make sure that the dough is even, so we can get all the pieces at the same size. We'll do it by hand first.
It'll be great having Andy in Brooklyn. It's the only way we can do it. That's it.
Press it.
So at least.
And then we cut it.
Yeah.
"17 pounds of dough. We have around 60 pieces. So this is around 5 dozen of plain bagels.
This dough is rested now and is ready to be shaped. So for today, we're going to use our everything. Okay, the nice thing about what we do versus a lot of other people, our everything is not only on the outside, but it's on the inside as well. And one of the advantages of not boiling it is you're able to do this. So one of the keys here is dipping it in first, okay, and getting a lot of everything seed on your dough, okay? And then you're going to pat it out and then roll it. You could probably use a little bit more flour on the table, but that's okay. Okay, you're gonna roll it out. And when you're really good, and I'm just okay, you can do it two hands, okay, without even really looking at it. Okay, and then it's gonna go back in for its final seeding. So we're going to do this. It's always easier to have a partner, okay? One of the things you want to realize is that the more dough you have ready, you need to be very mindful of your timing, okay? in terms of getting the stuff ready, because stuff can overproof on you quite easily. So
bread is actually an alive thing. It's alive. That's what we always debate. All bakers said, the bread is alive. So you need to remember, like, we're working at the room temperature. So if it's winter, the dough is gonna take a little bit longer time to rise. If it's summer, it's more hot, it's gonna be ready more sooner. So as Keith said, you need to keep that in mind. So you are sure that your dough is not overproof. But normally, after we cut it, we let it rest for around 10 to 15 minutes. And then the dough is ready to shape. The bagels are ready. We let them sit at the room temperature another hour or less, like I said, depending on the room temperature. And then we put it back on the refrigerator. And then we let it sit overnight, and we bake it tomorrow morning around 3 to 4 o'clock in the morning. So by the time the shop is open at 7:30, you have fresh bagels ready.
Like cooking and baking is even more critical, there's a timing factor. And it's not only timing, but you have to understand the amount of product that you have to shape. Because right now you have dough resting. So the pieces that are cut here are being shaped a little bit later than the stuff we just did. So how do you handle all that? And one of the best ways to do it is you have to understand your own personal ability, and maybe your first couple of pieces you take a little bit early, right? So something you should probably start a little bit early, right, Isaac?
Yes.
And then from there, you can form your pace, and then you can have a lot more consistency here. And again, like I've said many times before, baking is a lot like golf, okay? You can be Tiger Woods one day, and then you could just be a mini golf player the next. So it really, you really have to be mindful of not only the temperature, but of the dough, because the way you mix is not always 100%. So that is what makes a difference between a professional baker and just a regular baker, is understanding the different nuances in the dough. Isaac, since he does this all day, every day, can feel the dough a lot more differently than I can. So I think, right, you know when the dough is...
Yeah, we know when the dough is ready. Just by touching it, we know when the dough is ready.
And also when the dough is a little slightly off, and how do you correct it? You know, if the dough may be a little proof more than you want, the amount of pressure that you put with your hands is not going to be the same, okay? Because you're going to damage it a little bit more. So it's all these little different nuances that really separate the good bakers from the great bakers. And as you see, as we're doing more and more of these bagels, I'm not getting better, I'm actually getting worse. So
this is our everything bagel. We're gonna let it sit on a rack for around half an hour now. This normally take an hour. Then we're gonna put it in the fridge or a refrigerator, so it can rest for around 18 to 20 hours. I mean, if you're doing it at home, it can sit full night. But you can take it out in the morning and bake it fresh, so you have bagels ready for breakfast. We're in the process of shaping now. What we're shaping will be the bagels that we'll be baking off tomorrow morning at 5 a.m. So for today, we have some other products sitting in our refrigerator right now that we're going to pull out, show it to you. We're going to let it proof and then bake it. And of course, eat it. So, come on. So what we have here is we have 4 boards. We have the our regular sourdough. I see some sesame, and we have everything. So when we come inside, we're going to show you what the bagel looks like after it's been sitting overnight. Let's take a look at the everything bagel because we just shaped them. You can see here the everything bagel is a little tighter. The circumference is smaller. It has a little bit more height. Here overnight, it has flattened out a little bit, but it's also grown. So this is the right size of the bagel now. What we're going to wait on is we're going to let it proof at room temperature, and because it's so hot in here, it shouldn't take that long.
So what you're going to see is you're going to see it pop up a little bit. You're going to know from A, the dough not being as cold. Right now the dough is about 43 degrees. That's the temperature of the walk-in box. You really need to get it up into the 60s and 70s. So that should take about 15, 20 minutes here. Once that's done, we will prepare the oven, and we're going to show you how we use the steam injection in our ovens, which also you could recreate at home with just a spray bottle. So for somebody baking at home, I would use a pizza stone personally. That's a great way to make these bagels. I just wouldn't do it on a regular aluminum sheet tray. I would use a pizza stone, and I would also prep the oven with some steam. And the easy way to do is get a spray bottle of water for a home oven and spray it in there, keep the door shut, and then when you're ready to load again, you spray it again. And you should achieve pretty much a similar quality to what we're able here. It's never going to be the same because we all know that the home kitchens don't rival the pro kitchens. Otherwise, nobody would ever go out to eat. So we're going to keep this covered, okay, to help the proofing process and make sure it doesn't dry out. And we'll be back with you shortly. So we've now let the bagels rest for about 20 minutes. What you can see here is they've risen a little bit. They're not as cold to the touch. They're about 60 some odd degrees at this point, and they're ready to put in the oven. And what you're going to get is you're going to get what's called oven spring. And we're going to take some pictures of you when they first go in, and 5 minutes later, and 10 minutes, and then finally when they come out. So we're going to load the oven. One thing that we do before we load is we hit the steam button. So Isaac is going to hit the steam, get some steam in there. Now, you can hear the steam noise in the background. You're not going to get the same amount of steam in your oven. However, these bagels are very robust and will lend itself to the home baker.
Yeah.
So, Isaac, are we ready?
We're ready.
Okay, let's load the sesame.
Okay.
And we use a large hand peel for this oven. This oven's not that deep. We're able to take the full amount off. Okay. Not to disturb the bagels, we use the parchment paper, which is perfectly okay. It's made for high temperatures. Next, we're going to load the sourdough, or the plain. Our bagels are not heavy on sour. There's a light sour. It's more of a fragrant sour that you get through a fermented product. Now what we're going to do is we're going to close the door, and Isaac's going to hit it with steam again, just for a final short steam. Very shortly, you're going to see a nice pop in the product. We do recommend that you bake our bagels in the home oven around 450 degrees. We're doing the everything as well. We have the fork grain, which I think when you're looking at a grain bagel, it's one of the best out there. We have pumpkin seeds and poppy seeds and flax seeds. What else do we have in it? Do we have sesame too?
We got sesame too.
Okay.
We got coffee, sunflower.
And we also toast the seeds and grain ahead of time. So it's a very flavorful bagel. You can eat it just on its own. If you can see the top deck now, and you're only about a minute in, you're going to start seeing the bagels rise right now.
We bake our bagels for around 15 minutes. That gives them a really good size and a really nice color.
And the crunch.
And the crunch.
And for the New Yorkers that are watching right now, the one thing you don't need to do with these bagels is scoop them, okay? They're not a flagel, but they're not this overblown dough ball. So you can easily have a bagel and butter, or one of the things we do very well here is a bagel and lox without asking to scoop the bagel. So that's a big plus. And again, it follows the thinking of artisan baking and bread products. So whereas other people would boil it to get a quick proof, we do this long, slow fermentation. And that's what differentiates us from a lot of the other stores that produce bagels. Even if their mainstay is bagels, which for us it is not. We're not a bagel store, but we've worked very hard to master this product.
Okay, so our bagels are ready. And this is the sesame.
Through the 15 minutes of baking, we've seen that the bagel has risen. You have this beautiful burnished mahogany, almost mahogany-like color. And I think the viewer can also see this is a lot different than you see in your local bagel store. So we're going to put this down, let it cool a little bit, okay? We're going to take out the plain. You can really see.
And you can see all these small bubbles on the bread. That's a sign of a really good fermentation process.
That is correct. We're going to put those down as well. One of the things that we're going to do a little bit, once they're a little cooler, we're going to put them on the rack to cool. Otherwise, they're going to what's called sweat.
There's the multigrain bagels. You might say that they don't look even and all that stuff, but that's what they're shaped by hand. That's what you can see. Every single piece is different.
Well, we lost one there.
Yep. And this is our everything bagel.
There's a little bit of room here, Isaac.
Yes. And as you can see, every single kind is about the same color.
You're really not going to find many bagels. Definitely in New York City, I can't vouch for the rest of the country, that not only are going to have the eating qualities, but also the flavor to this. And if you want to zoom in, I mean, you're not going to find many everything bagels that actually look like that, let alone, it is a little hot. Wonder if you can capture the inside. It has it on the inside as well. The same goes for the grain. So one of the advantages or disadvantages of being a baker is we don't feel hot quite the same way. You can see the beauty in there. Once it cools, we can cut one open. And you get the beautiful sesame flavor, that toasted kind of nuttiness from the sesame and the sourdough. You have the beautiful, burnished, easy eating bagel. So, I hope you enjoyed what you saw here. We're pretty confident that we make one of the best bagels in the city. You can visit our stores on the east side, west side, or in Fort Greene, Brooklyn now. And one of the advantages of making all this great product, Isaac, is
That's the quality of the product. So we're gonna enjoy them.
bon appetit.
Bon appetit.
We are only as good as our last bake here. So all of us not only enjoy what we do, but we enjoy what we eat. So from us and the entire team, we always taste what we make. Fantastic.
Bagels, how is it?
Yeah.
You would like some cream cheese?
No, thank you.
No? Okay.